Airport Authority. Roll call, please, Jay.
Stephanie Lambert, Bill Wantland, Tim Poplin.
Here.
Dee Patterson.
Here.
John Kramer.
Here.
Chris Anson, Larry Church.
Here.
Corey Crabtree,
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Here.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items being removed from the consent agenda, we'll move on to any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Airport Authority. All right, with none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Seminole Gas Authority. Roll call, please.
John Kramer.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Dee Patterson.
Here.
Bill Wantland, Corey Crabtree,
Here.
Stephanie Lambert, Larry Church,
Here.
Chris Anson,
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and possible action of consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call, please.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items removed from the consent agenda, we'll move to any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Gas Authority. All right, with none, we'll move on to current business. Item 1, consideration and possible action to approve the master agreement for consulting services by task orders with C.H. Guernsey and Company for approving task orders assessing elements of the City of Seminole's existing natural gas franchise.
Is there any need to discuss this? Matt?
Go ahead.
So there were a few amendments or some suggestions that we had made. I had sent that to Guernsey. They were supposed to have the responses back to me yesterday. Haven't received them yet, so there's really nothing necessarily wrong with the contract. There's just some amendments that we would like to, that I would like to make. Nothing that's a showstopper, but I just would feel a little better with some, a little bit more comfortable with some of the language. So, I know we want to move fast on it. I'd ask that you would pass it, approve it, subject to staff review after we get the responses back.
So, could you give a couple of
Examples?
Just
Basically, there was some provisions that would allow them to hire sub-consultants, and that would require us to pay for those sub-consultants, but there wasn't anything there that would allow us to look and see who these sub-consultants were, and how much they would cost, and how much that would, additional cost that would be. They would just be able to do it without, just automatically without our approval. That was one of them. And there was some disposal fees in case they got out there and took some samples and require us to pay for the disposal. We don't even know what they are. You know, can we do it? Can we do it cheaper? That type of thing. They were more just cost-saving measures for us. That's all it really was.
Okay.
And I asked that they, give us basically notice and give us a heads up on how much it would cost.
So would we approve or disapprove?
I would go ahead and approve it, subject to.
No, I mean on their, what they would be providing to us on what it would cost.
Yes, I think they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna insert the language we want.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was under the impression of, so. I'm not gonna have you sign it, Mayor, without, if there's anything on there that I have a concern about.
We'll hold you responsible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we would, motion, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll motion it for approval.
With the changes,
Contingent upon staff review.
staff review, yeah, changes.
And approval of the.
A second?
Second that.
All right, roll call please, Jay.
John Kramer,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dean Patterson,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 2, consideration and possible action to approve task order 001 with C.H. Guernsey and Company for assessing elements of the city of Seminole's existing natural gas franchise at a cost not to exceed $60,000, a budgeted item from the Seminole Gas Authority. And this is not any different than what we previously talked about.
Correct.
Roll call vote.
John Kramer,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Dean Patterson.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will move on to the regular meeting of the Seminole Utilities Authority. Roll call, Jay.
Dean Patterson,
Here.
John Kramer.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Bill Wantland, Corey Crabtree,
Yeah, here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Stephanie Lambert, Larry Church,
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
No items removed from consent agenda, so do we have any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Utilities Authority? All right, with none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Do we not still have to do the consent agenda?
Oh, did I not do that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a good point. Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dean Patterson,
Here.
John Kramer.
Here. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
You got everybody.
Well, I really messed this up.
You wanna start over?
No, we're good, keep going.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
Tim
I
Poplin,
guess, yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we've already covered appearances or petitions, so how about the motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll move on to the regular meeting of the Seminole City Council. Roll call, please, Jay.
Chris Anson,
Here.
Dean Patterson.
Here.
Stephanie Lambert, Larry Church,
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Bill Wantland, Corey Crabtree,
Here.
John Kramer.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
That's what I get for marking it before I actually did it. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Corey, would you read our prayer, please?
Dear Lord, we thank you, Lord, for today. God, I thank you, Lord, that we were able to come together and perform business for our city of Seminole. God, I would ask that you would bless us, bestow upon us your wisdom to make decisions. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Dean Patterson.
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With no items removed from the consent agenda, do we have any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Seminole City Council? Okay, we'll move on to approvals and acceptances. Bids, item 1, consideration and possible action to approve the low bid of $48,602.82 from TriMac Construction Services to replace the library roof, a budgeted capital improvements project item.
I move to approve it. It seemed like this was quite a bit lower than the other bids for the term of the warranty.
Not to mention, I like to keep it dry in here.
Maybe the only shower I get.
What kind of guarantee do they put on it?
20 years.
20 years, and you received the bids and opened them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Move to
I
approve.
have a second. I already
Yeah,
have a
second.
motion and a second from Chris.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Dean Patterson,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to ordinances, consideration and possible action to approve ordinance number 1233, an ordinance regarding the licensing of animals.
Will someone have a horse that wanted to license or?
I'm gonna let our police chief kind of weigh in here, put his weight behind this ordinance. My apologies. That's not,
He's a mere shadow.
that is not what was intended. I meant of his office.
Come over here and stand with me, Chief.
Oh, golly. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, we have a big issue in the city limits right now. We do have an ordinance for licensing of animals. I think it's about 30 years old. Right now, we have a big issue in city limits of animals running at large. We have backyard breeders all over where they're just, animals are unspayed, unneutered, and they're just breeding left and right. So we, probably about a year ago, me and Brad sat down and we started rewriting some of the ordinance. I've sat down with the Humane Society, I've sat down with Dr. Kuhn and gone through a lot of ideas on things to do to try to stop some of these backyard breeders, to try to get a handle on the just the stray animals and everything that we have. And we came up with an ordinance to slow that down, to just, as we pick up an animal, this gives us if we start licensing them again, we haven't been using this ordinance, if we start licensing them again, we can start finding where these animals belong. Instead of having to take them to the shelter, we can take them home. There's all different kinds of things we can do with this ordinance. We ask that you consider this, take a look at it and consider it.
Did you want to suggest a
Committee.
focus group?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was gonna let you guys do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor, upon, we've kind of staffed this. There's a lot of questions. I know that if we just pass it blanket, that we're going to run into things that we didn't anticipate. I would encourage you to set up a focus group and try to help us navigate some of those questions in advance so that we can fine tune the ordinance before we pass it.
Sounds like a good idea.
I have a question. Is that just four-legged animals, or can we put two-legged ones in there?
We're not gonna license you to.
So you're asking that we,
Table until we get a committee established, revisit this. I'm like Chief, I think the veterinarians and the Humane Society are in agreement that something has got to change. We're just not sure, we don't want to bring a sledgehammer to the table if that's not what's required to do the job. If it's something softer, then that's what we want to do. But we cannot continue the way we're going. Our Humane Society, they can't keep up with all the strays. They just can't. And their mission has been and will continue to be a no-kill facility. They try to get those animals that are surplus to go to Idaho, other places where people are desiring those animals. They try to be a no-kill facility as much as possible, and they're not gonna be able to keep up if we don't do something about spay and neutering in town and licensing our animals.
I had a client at another locale, was walking to the store and was attacked by a dog, took big hunks of meat out of her legs and arms. So I'm, opposed to dogs running loose.
So one of the things like in the ordinance is to license your animal, which everybody is going to have to do under this ordinance if they want to have an animal in city limits. To get that license, you're gonna have to provide something to the city that is proof of your rabies, that the dogs have received their shots, and whether they're spayed or neutered. And obviously, it's not required as like the breeders and such, but still, there's gonna be mechanisms in place to protect the public, but also to, as the chief said, so that we don't just pick up these animals and dump them off in the shelter when they've, you know, they're required to have a tag, they're required to be, identified, so we can find the proper owner. I think it'll be a lot better once we get something in place and start enforcing it.
The shelter's constantly at full capacity. And it just, and like Steve was saying, they're constantly going, I mean, they're going 500, 1,000 miles away to find homes for these animals, to find, you know, rescues and stuff to place these animals in. And it's just, it's a drain, it's a huge drain, and it's just not working.
I have a question about what you said. Excuse me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I have a feeling that the people who are, only people who are gonna license their animals are gonna be the people who keep track of their animals when they lose them, go find them anyway. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't think it's gonna stop our stray problem.
That's exactly why we need that focus group.
I believe from talking to other people in other locations, that when you start doing the licensing, it gives you more teeth.
Yes.
To enforce it when they're not. When you have those owners, as you're talking about, that don't care, it gives you teeth for those owners to write them the citations.
Well, we've already got some, we can write a citation if we, I mean, of course, finding the owners would be the problem, but they're not gonna register those animals, is what I'm saying. So if you find the owners, we already have leash law. I mean, stick them with that. I mean, I don't know, we had golf cart fees added last month, this month we wanted to add dog and animal fees. I mean, are we gonna have to start licensing our kids next? I mean,
Well, I think we'll do that extra.
Hey, there's an idea.
Adoption
we're
rate.
turning into this federal government. here.
I'd like to drop my kids off at the shelter, it's all right.
Same thing, Brad.
They'll feed them one meal.
Well,
We're
just,
putting big government here for a long time.
just recently, they sent, 3 pups, 3 adult dogs to a rescue in Kansas.
We also took about, was it 25 or 30 animals out of a house over on Jefferson not too long ago, and,
We
I
just
mean,
took 28 off of, I think C Street in the last 2 weeks. 28 animals. And that's, we already have an ordinance. There is an ordinance in place for licensing them right now. There's currently one on the books. All this is doing is rewriting the ordinance, bringing it up to
I
today's
mean, I
date.
understand the need for some of this stuff, I don't know, when you start getting, I don't know, I'm not one to just keep tacking it on and adding things to our residents. And,
For the client that I mentioned that was attacked, we never did find the owner of the animal. Matter of fact, the animal disappeared. So, with registered ownership, I think that we can narrow down quite a bit when incidents like that happen.
You said there was already ordinance that was there for licensing?
Yes, sir.
I didn't even know that. first of
Yeah,
all.
it's something that hasn't been used in many years.
Okay, before you take.
What was the,
no, I can force it.
my dog's nearly my fence, okay? What was the
It
cost?
doesn't
of it?
matter, because we're gonna.
I'm sorry?
What was the cost of it, or was it?
$5 or something like that a year. $5 or $10, I mean, it's very minimal.
I have a question, Mayor.
Don't quote me on that, please, but it's very minimal.
What you're talking about is everybody that has a dog, whether it's inside or outside, has to be registered.
Yes, sir.
Where do you register? With the city, through the vet?
That would be worked out with this focus group, with this committee, whatever you want to call it. That would be all worked out through that. All the particulars would be worked out with that.
Is there the possibility to have the focus group discuss all of the things and bring it back to the council here to kind of narrow it down to?
That's what we're recommending.
Yeah,
That's what they're
okay.
saying.
That's exactly what we're recommending, is that we do this and bring it back.
That's a great idea.
I think you volunteered to leave it.
So we need a motion to table.
Can we give them the permission to go ahead and get a focus group? Is that-
That'd be
That's
my-
what they're
that'd be
asking
my
for, isn't
task.
it?
You can just take no action, whatever you want to do.
Take no action, let's get the mayor to assign a committee, and then we'll come back when We got it all worked out.
Word it, Jay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Have a motion.
We have no motion and no second.
Well, okay, I'll make a motion
To table, correct?
that we table it
Pending.
out of pending a report from the focus group that's gonna be appointed by our honorable mayor.
Way to go, Larry. That was good.
Go second. Well, I've been listening to you.
I'll second that.
I've been listening to you, so.
Roll call, please.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Tim Poplin,
Yes.
Corey Crabtree,
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Motion to table passes.
And I would be willing to take volunteers, if anyone would like to volunteer, so they can give me a call or call
That's all I
City
have
Hall
back there.
and city offices and please give your name. And we may not be able to take everybody, but we will.
That's it.
How many will it take?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that Dr. Kuhn be placed on that committee and maybe, I don't know if Dr. McCright or, no, he's not being interested.
Okay.
Dr. McCright maybe and some, of the- maybe one of the other veterinarians.
Okay. All right. Current business, consideration and possible action regarding traffic volume, speeds, and control within the city limits, including possible action to request the Oklahoma Department of Transportation to change speed limits on state highways within the corporate limits.
And what would we change those speed limits to? What are we asking for?
Well, on Highway 9, I think is the subject, and particularly around the intersection at Highway 9 and Milt Phillips. You know, I don't know what the number is. That's really for you guys to tell me. I would think probably 35 going through that intersection is plenty.
I agree. Well, I mean, things I've been seeing, I've seen stuff, people, well, I've said it for years, but I've also seen some complaints, a whole thread, with the numerous complaints about the speed on the entire road. And I've often said when that speed limit was set to 50, there wasn't anything out there. You know, when I was little, there was hardly anything out there. Now, you know, it's busy. I mean, I would just as soon see the whole thing set to 40 all the way through. It worked for me, but especially the lights, because I also heard conversations about after we were able to stop some people for jake braking, and their response is, well, how do you expect the truck to stop when those lights turn yellow and they got a load? And I'm like, well, they're coming into a light, they ought to be prepared to stop. But if they're not going 50 or 55 miles an hour, they should have no problem stopping. So if that's the case, we need to slow the speed limits down coming into those stoplights. So they can't say that. That's my opinion, and that's kind of why I've asked for this. So I would like to see the whole thing 40 and coming into stoplights, maybe 35.
I said 35, I agree with you. And it's hard to shut it down from the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit turning into the traffic light.
The changing of the lights has certainly helped some, you know, with the delay, but the trucks are still coming through. I mean, they'll run it. I just saw it last week, you know,
And it's not just trucks.
No, it's not.
It's cars too, you know, they're,
try to beat it, speed up.
yeah, they either try to beat it or, you know, they don't give themselves enough time to stop. So short of spending a lot of money trying to put lights, flashers in and things like that, we just, let's just slow it all down.
I followed a truck in on Orange Boulevard, turned into Orange Boulevard, to the traffic light, it was green. But he maintained 50, 55 all the way to where he unhooked his trailer.
For years, I said a bypass would solve it.
I think you're right.
I think Tim came up with that idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's gonna name it the D.D. Patterson bypass.
From what I read and what we were talking about, we were gonna ask ODOT to make recommendations. Can we set the speed limit ourselves as a city council, or we gotta go through ODOT?
Yes, we have to go through ODOT. It's their highway. Now, if you wanna take over the maintenance of everything, they will
We already done
generally,
that.
generally allow you to do that, but my recommendation on that is leave it with the state, but they will take our recommendations into, under consideration, but they have the authority to do it.
So is that the only one we're really looking at, Highway 9? So, I mean,
99,
nope, I mean, yeah, 99's out. I mean, it's slow coming into town already out here. And the highest you get to is 45 in front of.
What is the speed limit, chief, on 377 coming in?
45.
You feel like that needs to be lower?
That's on Millville.
That's
Coming into
Mill
town, it's all
Phillips,
the way down
yes.
to 35.
I'm sorry?
Coming in south of town over the railroad track.
Yeah, it's 35, and then when it hits like Kentucky Fried Chicken, it goes up to 45 right in that area.
So it's all right, it's okay probably, you think?
Feel like it's okay, chief?
Yes, I do.
Sounds like we need to leave it to ODOT.
Well, yeah, all we're going to be able to do is ask them to study the situation and ask them to lower the speed limit around that intersection. I can tell you from experience, what they're going to do is they're going to send someone out. They're gonna evaluate the crashes that we've had in the last 2 years. Is it 2 years? And they'll evaluate the severity of those crashes, and based upon the injuries and/or deaths, they will make a determination on whether or not to adjust the speed limit.
So they can take your recommendation or go lower, right? Can they do what they want?
They can do it's their highway, so they can do whatever they want. They can take no action, they may lower it, they may add additional traffic controls.
This is, no, the third time we've done this over the course of several years. They just kind of ignore it, seems like.
Exactly.
I would think they'd be taking a close look with the new high school and all, coming in from that direction, so.
I did,
All of
was
it
under the
should be looked
impression that
into.
one of the last times that we did this, that they told us we could lower it, or we could do whatever we wanted to with it. I really thought we heard that at one point, but maybe I misunderstood.
I don't recall that ever being said by ODOT. I'm not familiar with that conversation.
Well, hopefully they'll come back and say, well, we told you you could do whatever. you
Yeah,
want.
and if that's the answer, then we'll just
Right.
throw up 35 miles an hour and we'll go on.
I move to approve.
second,
Roll call, please, Jim.
Chris Hansen.
Yes.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Larry Church.
yes,
Tim Poppins.
Yes.
Ray Crabtree.
Yes.
John Kramer. Motion passes.
Item 4, consideration and possible action to approve the date and times for Halloween trick-or-treat night in October.
I think people should get a license to hand out trick-or-treat candy and a trick-or-treat.
How about a license to get it, to trick or treat?
except at your home.
If you don't have a sign, you can't stop at the house.
Porch light has to be on.
So we've gotten a lot of phone calls at the city.
Go ahead, Steve.
We've gotten a lot of phone calls at City Hall wanting to move it to Friday the 1st. And I didn't know if you guys were in for that, or perhaps move it back to the Saturday, the 26th. But Thursday kind of falls in the middle of the week, and just kind of up to you guys what you want to do.
I think we should leave it on Thursday.
I'm here.
Do the normal, it's usually 6 to 9, so we get our motion to leave it on the 31st.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
No, second,
Okay, you guys did not honor the time tradition of poking Chris about keeping it on the 31st. You're supposed to all chime in against the 31st and then vote for
I've
it.
gotten here early, so you
Okay,
can tell me
all right.
these things.
Time-honored tradition to put it, but no, 31st is good. I think that's it.
Roll call.
Chris Hansen.
Yes.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes,
Tim Poppins.
Yes.
Ray Crabtree.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 5, consideration and possible action regarding prohibiting driving through neighborhoods following kids to individual houses during trick-or-treat night.
And I asked for this because,
Yes, you did.
and I know it's gonna cause a stink, but I think if you wanna follow your kids, then again, you've got time.
That's gonna be difficult to.
No, well, no, this is the problem. You live in a neighborhood such as I do with, it's basically got two entrances. I mean, they're not straight through and everything's cul-de-sacs. You have parents from, and I am fine, I don't care who comes and trick or treats my house, but they come into our neighborhood and they follow their kids in and out of those cul-de-sacs, and it is bumper to bumper and it is dangerous. That makes it to where even the kids that live in the neighborhood, it's dangerous for them to go, because they know most of the people in the neighborhood, so they go through the entire neighborhood, and they're trying to cross traffic that's nonstop. If someone were to get hurt, or if there was an emergency situation somewhere in the neighborhood, emergency services cannot get back there.
I have a question, where do we propose that these cars are gonna park?
Side of the road, you get out and walk like the people in the neighborhood do.
So if they're not in their cars and we need someone to move, then they can't move their cars to let them.
So if they're parked on the curbs, there's room down the middle to get in and out. I mean, if you live in the neighborhood, you can't even get into your house after 6 o'clock.
Yeah, no,
Forget it.
I know,
They've been doing
Some
that
of-
for years. How many kids have ever been run over? But, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's the same way in our neighborhood.
I've had some neighbors.
How you gonna enforce it?
I don't know that you can. I put it on here to discuss, so we can let's talk about it.
I think there may be some cases though where maybe there's parents that aren't able to walk with their kids, so then that would mean their kid would be on their own walking through, which could potentially be a hazard as well. You know, not knowing how many that might be, but I'm sure there's some cases where that could be a potential as well.
We don't have to do anything with it, but I just wanted to put it out.
You know, from what I've seen, there's like two or three or four neighborhoods, you know, like up around Northwood, around the school, that gets jammed up. But you know, just the regular streets, which are probably 80% or 90%, yeah, there's a few, but it's not jammed up like you're talking about. But Northwood and down Carson gets jammed up, there's no doubt about it.
Well, like I say, the three streets are not as bad. It's the streets like ours where you go in and out of cul-de-sacs and you know, you do have some cars that are already parked, so then you end up having one lane and trying to turn around and come back out and people are still coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mess. I mean,
That's because y'all have all the good candy.
Quit giving them
Turn your
quarter
porch light off.
candy card.
I'm wondering what our police chief thinks. What's your thinking?
That's a tough call. I mean, I agree with the fact that if we do have, you know, a medical call or something, it's gonna be hard to get in there, but it's like you guys have talked about. How the heck are we gonna enforce that? I don't have a clue of how we would enforce that.
You got 2 motorcycles?
Thanks.
That's a chance to get 3, chief.
Yeah. And that's a chance to prove Larry Church correct.
If you were to do anything, I would think it might be easier to try to make it one direction.
Yeah, I was fixing,
You know,
that-
the suggestion, and I hate to say it this way, but try to get the neighbors to park on the driveways for that night for 3 hours. I mean, I don't know, it's a tough call, but I just don't know that we could even enforce it. I don't know how we're gonna enforce
Stand
it.
down at the end of the street with their candy, and then the kids could pass
Yeah.
by.
And
Pass that candy
I don't
down.
know how you would get it out to everyone, because I'm sure there's people.
Yeah, I don't know how we get it out or how we'd enforce it, either one.
How about outlawing trick or treat? That'll fix it.
I'm okay with that.
Parker will shoot your house every time you
Lights up high like we do.
Now, Brenda, you might have a fight with my wife, but, yeah, she loves trick or treat.
Citywide truck or lights in your driveway, is that what you're saying?
All right, so we have an item on.
Do we have a motion?
We have no motion. So with no motion, move on to item 6. Consideration and possible action regarding establishing a school zone at the new high school.
Well, there's an idea.
Do we have the authority to do that?
We need to do that.
How can we set a school zone or speed limit on a state highway?
They've already given us permission to do that.
Okay,
so
but it's only
we're just
limited?
following up. Yes, sir.
Okay. Did they tell us how far away from the school we can?
Yes, I believe it's 1,000 feet from the entrance is where our school zone will start.
We have the authority to expand that if we want to, is that what you're saying?
Say again, Dee Dee?
Do we have the authority to expand it more than 30,000 feet?
No, that's the authorization that we were given, so.
What's the
Well, why is
1,000
it
feet by
becoming
block and a half?
to us, then
Okay,
the state is gonna set that, are they not?
no, they're just telling us it's okay. If we want to sign that as a school zone, they're telling us that's fine to reduce the speed in front of the high school.
So how do we, because aren't there rules for that? I mean, how far does that get us? Because it goes up to like 55, like there in the college, once you get past the,
Yep,
once you get over by the Haynes.
yes,
So
so,
it doesn't good to have 55 to slow them down to 25. So how do we do that to the right steps?
How far is it 1,000 feet? I guess that would be my.
It's over a block. A block's about 800 feet, I think.
Does anybody know how far back 1,000 feet is?
5,280 feet is a mile,
Yeah.
so it's a fifth of a mile.
I wonder if you could go 45, 35, 25 or something. I don't think it's enough room.
But I think what he's saying is that the state will have to change the speed limit.
Further back.
Yeah.
I would imagine if we set the school zone, then we could request them to review that, to allow it to be a gradual increase of speed and not to 50 right at the college.
okay, so they have what they call uniform traffic code, and that determines how far in advance you have to start the slowing to get them to 25 miles an hour. So they're already aware of that, and we've got it all game planned. It's ready to move. We just need the city council's approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do we have to pay for the signs, or does the state do the flashing stuff?
Okay, we took that expense, we, the city, took that expense as part of the school bond election, and we've got the signs ordered. They may already be here, I didn't check today. But we have elected to purchase the signs that have the speed limit posted, or the speed limit detected as you drive by.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be able to see, hey, I'm going 35 into a 25 mile an hour zone, I need to slow down. So that should be here this week. So the question is going to be, when do we start the school zone? Mike and I kind of debated this morning. I kind of want to give them a little bit more lead time. Mike wants to go ahead and put them up this week and cover them until December 25th or so, and start it about 2 weeks before school starts. I don't think that's enough time. I think we need to get them conditioned to recognize, hey, there's a school zone here. So more than likely, we're going to put them up next week, and we'll probably negotiate something in the middle where probably around the 1st of December, we'll make that a full-fledged school zone. You know, school won't be in session technically, but at least we'll have the flashing lights will be there, and people will be able to condition themselves to know that that's a school zone coming into Seminole.
So are they gonna be signs that basically say 25 miles per hour when flashing, or? Because you can put them up, and if they're not flashing, people will still be aware that that's gonna be a school zone by driving.
Yeah, I don't recall, Mayor, I really, the order form went in 6 months ago. And I don't recall the exact verbiage of what it looks like, but, so your question, if I'm reading it right, is during the summer when school is not in session, are we going to continue to make people go for 25 through the, I don't have an answer for you.
Really, I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was thinking if it said that, we could put them in, leave them uncovered, and then they're not flashing, so the speed limit would be 35 or whatever it's gonna be through there if it's not flashing, but that was really where I was going with it. I wasn't thinking about next summer.
We're gonna be slowing down looking at it anyway, might as well do it.
Yeah, I think you should put them up personally because that does get people prepared.
I do too.
Go ahead and put the cop car out there with the dome.
I agree.
Amen.
It's already
been there.
I think Mike's a little more pessimistic about it becoming a beer bottle target than I am.
So I can call a question.
Well, if they park the police car out there, that can be the target.
Yikes.
Mr. Dunn. There needs to be somebody in there.
Yes.
I'd like to call a question. By calling the question, I mean the motion has been made and seconded, I think, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so that means we can vote on it.
As soon as I ask him to take a roll call, yep. Everybody finished? All right, roll call please, Jay.
Chris Anson. Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Larry Church.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, reports. Well, I just have one thing to say. Chris, thank you for paying attention and knowing that I didn't take that. Everybody else was just gonna let me go on, so thank you for that.
They weren't paying attention.
That's really all I have, so city manager, Steve?
Okay, so, I just want to encourage everyone, we're coming into a time where your lawns are having some pretty good growth on them. We've got companies looking at us right now. We really need this sparkle. Please mow your lawns. We did finally get the 100% hotel plans this last week. So that thing is underway. Mike's not here, but I think our water line extension is imminent, so you'll probably see the boring going in hopefully next week. The housing developer is in good shape. We've got the term sheet back from the banks, so I think that is also imminent. I want to tell you about the Hall of Fame banquet out at the Wellness Center. That's coming on November 21st. Get your tickets early. That is also the night that we turn on the Snowman Wonderland lights at that event. So that's always a great one. Along the Snowman Wonderland, I will tell you that we hired a young man to do some of the renovations on the exhibits, and that's going fantastic. He's done a great job so far, and it should be bigger and brighter than it has been in the recent past. Last year, our guys rallied and made it happen at the last minute. That's not going to be the case this year. Those things are going to be in shape and ready to go. I just want to give kudos to our social media and our new GIS specialist. It's nice to have that kind of presence, positive presence on social media that we've got right now. Hopefully you get on Facebook or Instagram once in a while and like what they're doing. Looks great. Eventually, and I don't know when we're going live with the GIS piece of Facebook where they can mark their storm shelters. Is that next week?
Within the next week, yes.
Okay, so with all the technical expertise that we've got right now, we are able to let people on their Facebook account, if they've got a storm shelter, they can actually, from their Facebook account, log in, tell us, hey, my storm shelter is right here, and ping it, and we'll be able to log that into our GIS system. So it's going to be really convenient. Just be careful. If you've locked your doors at any of the city venues, Dolores now has a key to everything. She's got a key to the city, so she may be walking in. Just be aware that can happen. We tore down the restrooms out by the Armory. The Armory was kind enough to allow us to do that. The American Legion was. Those things were well past their lifespan, and we finally got them torn down. It was beginning to stink up the softball quad, so our guys went out there and tore it down, thank goodness. The USA Tank project is, the SEDC group has, and the Urban Renewal is also gonna participate in purchasing the two buildings out there next, kinda close to the cemetery. And, those things are slated to be torn down soon. I don't know that it'll be this month, but probably during after our crews don't have to cut grass anymore, probably in the dead of winter, we'll be tearing those buildings down. So that'll be, slick everything off and get us ready for the roundabout. And then we covered the flashing lights at the school. That's all I have, Mayor.
City Attorney? Nothing? All right. Ward 1, Larry Church.
Women and children, support women and children any way you can, especially single mothers and girls. Thank you.
Ward 2, John Kramer. Ward 3, Corey Crabtree.
No word.
Tim Popley.
I have a question with my time. I thought Blue Wave purchased those buildings you're talking about. Did that not happen?
So, the plan originally was for Blue Wave to expand into those buildings. And we had a public hearing, we were going to write a CDBG grant as part of that purchase. Ultimately, by the time they did the renovation on the building, and we had, some of that is actually a city street, Elm, is it, what was the street name? Elm? So, we had priced it through Silver Star to run the road from Strother to their building. And it ended up, I think it was almost $750,000 to get a path, not even a real road. But there was so much dirt work going up that hill, it was almost $750,000, and they didn't want to do anything near that. So that would have eaten up the vast majority of the grant. But we had it under contract for, I feel like it was a reasonable price, $115,000 for building and 13 acres. Help me.
Yeah.
More or less.
More or less,
13
yeah.
acres. So we can have that for a lot of different venues, sports complex or whatever later. But SEDC went ahead and said, hey, we want to go ahead and finish that purchase. So hopefully that answers your question. The Blue Wave deal is dead. More than likely, when they expand, they're gonna do it closer to their building so they don't have such a big expense.
Follow up. Thank you. The roundabouts, you said that they went up like 70,000 on what we talked about and approved. Where we're at with that deal?
We're still plodding along with that. One of the things that we're trying to do is match up that roundabout construction with the other streets, the Lincoln, Roosevelt, thank you. So that we only pay one mobilization fee. If we pay mobilization fee on each road, it adds about $15,000 to $20,000 for each time they move. So what we want to do is we want to do it all at one time. Kind of build that, move over to Lincoln, then to Roosevelt and Harvey, so that we only pay one mobilization fee. That didn't answer your question apparently. What?
Thank you, my time's up. You buy lunch, we'll talk.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, really do.
Ward 4, Chris Hansen. D.D. Patterson. Okay, then I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Before I left the house, I heard on the radio that Coach Mike Snyder was nominated Teacher of the Year. And they gave him $1,000, and I don't know what else. We don't have to, Mike Snyder,
Teacher of the Year.
Channel 5 gave him Teacher of the Month for September. He's Teacher of the Month right now, and which means he'll go up for Teacher of the Year.
Very nice.
And the Seminole Arts Council.
Congratulations. had a motion by Corey and